The Vampire's Promise.
Chapter 1. A Taste of Fate. The soft hum of lights and the smell of cleaning chemicals filled the air as Elias walked through the hospital's blood donation center. His pale, thin fingers moved quickly and carefully as he got the tools ready for the first person of the day. After living for 200 years, he had become very good at this job. It was a bit funny, though, a vampire working in a place where blood was collected. Elias looked at his reflection in a shiny metal tray. His skin was smooth and white, and he looked young even though he was really very old. His dark eyes were full of secrets from many years of living. He shook his head slightly, pushing away the sad feelings that often bothered him. This job was the closest thing he had to a purpose now, even if it wasn't perfect. As the first people came in to donate blood, Elias started his routine. He was kind and gentle, which made even the most nervous patients feel calm. Every time he drew blood, he felt a small hunger inside him, a desire to taste just a little. But he had learned to control this hunger over the years, even if he couldn't make it go away completely. Mr. Thorne. The head nurse called his name, pulling him out of his thoughts. There's a first-time donor in room 3. She's very nervous, so please be extra gentle. Elias nodded and smiled softly. Of course, I'll take care of her right away. As he walked toward room 3, a strange and interesting smell caught his attention. It was sweet and spicy, and it made his fangs ache with longing. He took a deep breath to calm himself, then knocked on the door and walked in. A young woman was sitting on the edge of the examination table. She looked up at him with wide, nervous eyes. Her brown hair fell in soft waves around her face, and she was nervously playing with the hem of her sweater. "Hello, I'm Elias Thorne," he said in a calm, soothing voice. "And you are?" "Sophia," she whispered. "Sophia Lawson." As Elias moved closer, the smell became stronger. It was coming from her. Her blood smelled different from any he had smelled before. He swallowed hard and forced himself to focus on his job. "Is this your first time donating blood?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. Sophia nodded, her eyes fixed on the needle he was preparing. "There's no need to worry. I'll make sure it doesn't hurt much." Sophia gave a small, weak smile. "I'm sorry, it's just, I'm really scared of needles. But I want to do this. My mom needed a blood transfusion last year, and I saw how important it is to donate blood." Elias felt a deep respect for her courage. "That's very brave of you, Sophia. A lot of people let their fears stop them, but you're facing yours. That's true bravery." Her cheeks turned pink at the compliment, and Elias couldn't help but notice the way her blood rushed to her skin. He cleared his throat and tried to stay professional. "Why don't you tell me a little about yourself?" he suggested as he began to prepare her arm for the needle. "It'll help take your mind off things." Sophia took a deep breath, her eyes moving between Elias's face and his hands. "Well, I'm a graduate student studying art history. I've always been fascinated by the stories behind great works of art and how they capture moments in time." Elias's interest grew. "Art history? That sounds interesting. Is there a particular time period or artist you like?" As Sophia started talking about her love for Renaissance art, Elias carefully inserted the needle into her vein. She hardly noticed, too caught up in their conversation. Elias found himself genuinely interested, sharing his own knowledge of the time period, careful not to mention that he had actually lived through it. Time passed quickly, and before Sophia knew it, the donation was over. Elias gently removed the needle and pressed a small bandage to her arm. "All done," he said with a warm smile. "You did great, Sophia." She looked surprised as she glanced down at her arm. "Really? I hardly felt anything." You're really good at this, Elias. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Elias felt something between them that was more than just a normal doctor-patient connection. There was something special about Sophia, something beyond the smell of her blood, that drew him in. As he secured the bandage on her arm, his fingers brushed against her skin, sending a shock through him. Sophia's breath caught, and he knew she had felt it too. "Thank you for making this so easy," she said softly. "I was really scared, but you made me feel safe." Elias helped her sit up slowly, his hand resting lightly on her back. "It was my pleasure. Your bravery made my job easy." As Sophia gathered her things to leave, Elias found himself not wanting her to go. "Remember to drink plenty of fluids and take it easy for the rest of the day." "And Sophia?" She turned to look at him, her eyes curious. "I hope we'll see you again soon." She smiled brightly, her cheeks flushing again. "I think you will. Goodbye, Elias." As the door closed behind her, Elias leaned against the examination table, his heart racing in a way it hadn't in a long time. The vial of Sophia's blood sat on the tray beside him, calling to him like a sweet song. He knew he shouldn't. It was against all the rules he had set for himself, everything he did to keep his secret and stay human. But the temptation was too strong. With shaking hands, Elias reached for the vial. He told himself he was just curious. He wanted to understand why her blood smelled so different, so tempting. But deep down he knew it was more than that. Carefully, he let one drop fall onto his tongue. The effect was immediate and unlike anything he had felt in his 200 years of life. The taste was rich, complex, and completely overwhelming. But it wasn't just the taste. With that one drop, Elias felt a rush of emotions and feelings. It was as if Sophia's essence flowed through him. Her kindness, her passion, her fears, and her hopes. For the first time in a long, long time, Elias felt truly alive. As the feeling faded, leaving him breathless and shaky, Elias realized what he had done. He had crossed a line, given in to a moment of weakness that could ruin everything he had worked for. Yet, as he sealed the vial and put it away, he couldn't fully regret it. Something had awakened inside him, a spark of curiosity, of possibility, that he thought had died long ago. Sophia Lawson was special in more ways than one. And Elias knew with a certainty that both excited and scared him, that his life was about to change forever. As he got ready for his next patient, Elias couldn't stop thinking about Sophia. The memory of her smile, the sound of her voice, and the taste of her blood stayed with him, a constant reminder of the unexpected connection they had shared. For the first time in centuries, Elias felt a glimmer of something he thought was impossible: hope. Hope for a future that was more than just an endless repetition of days. Hope for a connection that could end the loneliness of his immortal life. But with that hope came fear. Fear of what might happen if he followed this feeling, fear of the danger he could be to Sophia, and fear of losing himself to the temptation her blood brought. As the day went on, Elias struggled with these conflicting feelings, all while keeping up his act as a skilled and caring blood collector. He knew the path ahead would be full of challenges, but for the first time in a very long time, he found himself looking forward to what the future might hold. The taste of fate, it seemed, was both sweet and dangerous, just like Sophia. Chapter 2: Beneath the Surface. Sophia took a deep breath as she walked toward the hospital entrance, her heart beating fast with a mix of nerves and excitement. It had been 2 weeks since she first donated blood, and now she was back for a follow-up appointment. As she pushed through the revolving doors, her mind wandered to the handsome phlebotomist who had made her first experience surprisingly easy. The familiar smell of antiseptic filled her nose as she walked to the blood donation center. The lights above hummed softly, casting a clean glow on the shiny floors. Sophia's footsteps echoed in the quiet hallway, each step bringing her closer to the man who had been on her mind more than she wanted to admit. As she entered the waiting area, her eyes quickly found Elias. He was talking gently to an elderly patient, his kind manner calming the woman. Sophia couldn't help but smile, admiring how easily he made people feel comfortable. Elias looked up, his sharp eyes meeting Sophia's. He recognized her instantly and smiled warmly, making her heart skip a beat. He excused himself from the elderly patient and walked over to Sophia, moving gracefully. "Miss Sophia," he greeted her in a smooth voice. "It's good to see you again. Have you been feeling well since your donation?" Sophia nodded, trying to hide the slight shake in her hands. "Yes, thank you. I was surprised at how easy it was. I think I have you to thank for that." Elias's smile grew, showing his perfect white teeth. "I'm glad I could help make it a good experience for you. Shall we go ahead with your follow-up?" As they walked to the examination room, Sophia couldn't help but notice how smoothly Elias moved. There was something almost magical about his grace. She found herself wondering more about his life outside the hospital. Inside the room, Elias motioned for Sophia to sit down. As he got the tools ready, a comfortable silence settled between them. Sophia watched his careful movements, impressed by how skillfully he handled each item. "So, Elias," Sophia started, breaking the silence, "how long have you been working as a phlebotomist?" Elias paused for a moment, a distant look in his eyes. "Oh, I've been in this job for quite some time," he replied, his voice sounding far away. "It feels like a calling. Helping people, making a difference. It gives me a sense of purpose." Sophia nodded, intrigued by the passion in his voice. "It must be rewarding, but it must also be hard sometimes." "Yes, it is," Elias agreed, his eyes meeting hers. "Every day is different, with new people and new experiences. It keeps things interesting." He cleared his throat as if shaking off a heavy thought. "And what about you, Sophia? Why did you decide to donate blood for the first time?" Sophia felt her cheeks warm as she remembered her initial fear. "Well, I've always been scared of needles. My mom was very protective when I was young, and she made me afraid of hospitals and medical procedures." Elias listened closely, his expression softening with understanding. "That must have been tough. What made you decide to face your fear?" Sophia's eyes brightened with determination. "I realized my fear was stopping me from doing something important. My best friend's mom needed a blood transfusion last year, and I saw how crucial blood donations are. I decided it was time to face my fear and do my part." A look of admiration crossed Elias's face. "That's very brave of you, Sophia. Facing our fears is never easy, but it often leads to the best experiences in life." As Elias began the examination, checking Sophia's vitals and asking about her health since the donation, she found herself relaxing in his presence. There was something about him that made her feel calm, even in the clinical setting. "You know," Sophia said, watching as Elias made notes on her chart, "I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually looking forward to donating blood again. It feels good to know I'm helping others." Elias looked up, a mysterious glint in his eye. "I'm glad to hear that. Your blood type is quite rare, you know. Your donations could make a big difference in someone's life." Sophia tilted her head, curious. "Really? I didn't know that. Is that why you seemed so interested during my first donation?" For a brief moment, Sophia thought she saw something, hunger, desire, in Elias's eyes, but it was gone so quickly that she thought she might have imagined it. Elias cleared his throat, his professional manner back in place. Yes, well, rare blood types are always exciting for us in the medical field. They can be life-saving in certain situations. As Elias finished the examination, declaring Sophia in perfect health, a comfortable silence fell between them. Sophia found herself not wanting to leave, wanting to spend more time with him. Elias, she began, her voice a little unsure. I hope this isn't too forward, but would you like to grab a coffee sometime? Outside of the hospital, I mean. Elias froze for a moment, something intense flickering in his eyes. Sophia held her breath, wondering if she had gone too far. Finally, a warm smile spread across his face. I would like that very much, Sophia. As they exchanged phone numbers and made plans to meet later that week, neither of them noticed the shadow that passed by the examination room door. A figure with ancient eyes and a disapproving frown. Later that evening, Elias sat in his dimly lit apartment, surrounded by artifacts from his long life. Books lined the shelves, showing the centuries he had lived through. He held a glass of deep red liquid, swirling it absent-mindedly as he stared out the window at the city lights. His mind drifted to Sophia, to the warmth of her smile and the life in her veins. He closed his eyes, remembering the tempting scent of her blood, the way it called to him like a siren's song. A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Elias sighed, already knowing who it was before he opened it. Marcus, he greeted the tall, imposing figure who entered his apartment. What brings you here? Marcus, Elias's vampire mentor who had turned him centuries ago, fixed him with a stern gaze. I saw you with that human girl today, Elias. I hope you're not getting attached. Elias turned away, unable to meet Marcus's intense stare. She's just a patient, nothing more. Marcus stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. We both know that's not true. I can see it in your eyes, smell it on you. You're drawn to her. Elias spun around, defiance flashing in his eyes. And what if I am? Is it so wrong to feel something after all these years? Marcus's expression softened a little, showing a hint of pity in his ancient eyes. My dear boy, you know nothing good can come from getting close to humans. They are fragile, fleeting creatures. We are eternal. It can only end in heartbreak, or worse. Elias turned back to the window, his reflection ghostly in the glass. Maybe you're right, he murmured, more to himself than to Marcus. Maybe it's best if I keep my distance. As Marcus left, satisfied that he had made his point, Elias stayed by the window. He thought of Sophia, of the coffee date they had planned, of the way her eyes lit up when she smiled. He knew he should cancel, should cut off all contact with her. And yet, as he picked up his phone and saw her name in his contacts, he couldn't bring himself to do it. For the first time in centuries, Elias felt truly alive. The thought of letting go of that feeling, of letting go of Sophia, was more painful than he cared to admit. With a heavy sigh, Elias put down his phone. He would see her again, despite the risks, despite Marcus's warnings. He only hoped he had the strength to keep his true nature hidden, to protect Sophia from the darkness that lurked beneath his carefully constructed facade. As the night deepened, Elias stood by the window, caught between two worlds, the eternal night of his vampire existence, and the bright promise of a new day that Sophia represented. The choice before him was clear but impossible, and as the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, Elias knew that his carefully ordered world was about to change forever. Chapter 3. A Night to Remember. The soft glow of candlelight flickered across Elias's face as he sat at a small table in La Petite Maison, a cozy French restaurant hidden in the city. His fingers tapped lightly on the tablecloth as he glanced at his watch for the third time in a few minutes. Sophia was supposed to arrive any moment, And even after centuries of living, Elias found himself feeling unusually nervous. When the door of the restaurant opened, a cool breeze brought in the sweet smell of Sophia's perfume mixed with her unique blood scent. Elias's eyes quickly moved to the entrance, where he saw her walk in. She wore a deep blue dress that fit her perfectly and made her eyes sparkle like blue gems. Sophia's eyes searched the restaurant until they found Elias. A smile spread across her face, making Elias's heart, silent for centuries, flutter. He stood up as she approached, pulling out her chair in a polite and old-fashioned way. "You look absolutely beautiful," Elias said, his voice low and soft, sending a pleasant chill down Sophia's spine. Sophia's cheeks turned pink as she sat down. "Thank you, Elias. You look great too," she replied, noticing how his suit was perfectly tailored and his dark hair was stylishly messy. As they looked at the menus, Elias couldn't help but glance at Sophia. The candlelight lit up her face, showing the gentle curve of her neck where her pulse, full of life, beat softly. He quickly pushed the thought away, focusing instead on her lovely smile. "So," Sophia began, setting her menu down, "how does someone like you end up working as a phlebotomist? I mean, you seem so sophisticated, like you're from another time." Elias chuckled, his laugh rich and smooth. "You could say I have a special interest in blood," he said with a playful glint in his eye. "But really, I enjoy helping people face their fears and save lives." Sophia nodded, her expression softening. "That's really kind of you. I have to admit, if it wasn't for you, I might have run away from the blood donation chair." Their conversation flowed easily as they ordered their meals. Elias chose a rare steak, and Sophia ordered a chicken dish cooked in wine. While they waited for their food, Elias gently steered the conversation away from his past, encouraging Sophia to talk about herself instead. "What made you decide to donate blood, even though you're scared of needles?" he asked, genuinely curious. Sophia's eyes became sad for a moment, and she absent-mindedly played with her wine glass. "My mom," she said quietly. "She passed away last year from leukemia. During her treatment, she needed a lot of blood transfusions. I saw how important blood donations are, and I promised myself I would face my fear and help others like those strangers helped my mom." Elias reached across the table and gently placed his hand over hers. The difference between his cool touch and her warm skin was noticeable, but neither of them seemed to mind. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Sophia. Your mom would be very proud of you." Sophia's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled softly. "Thank you, Elias. It means a lot to hear that." When their meals arrived, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Elias told Sophia stories about his travels, carefully avoiding details that might reveal his true nature. In return, Sophia shared her dream of becoming a writer, her eyes lighting up as she described the fantasy novel she was working on. "It's about a woman who can see people's past lives," Sophia explained excitedly. "She uses this power to help souls find peace and move on to their next life." Elias leaned forward, clearly interested. "That sounds fascinating. Have you ever thought about the point of view of someone who has lived many lives within one existence?" Sophia tilted her head, thinking. "I hadn't, actually. That's an interesting idea. Almost like a vampire, maybe?" Elias's hand tightened slightly around his fork. "Yes, I imagine it would be quite similar," he said, forcing a light laugh. "Living through different times and adapting to changes." "The loneliness," Sophia added softly, looking into his eyes. For a moment, Elias felt like she could see through him, past his outer appearance to the immortal being inside. As the evening went on, the romantic tension between them grew stronger. Their hands brushed against each other as they reached for the bread, lingering a little longer than necessary. Their eyes met across the table, filled with unspoken emotions and a connection that went beyond just attraction. After dessert, a rich chocolate mousse that they shared, Elias suggested a walk through the nearby park. The night air was cool and fresh, the full moon casting a silver light over everything. As they walked along the winding path, their hands brushed again, sending sparks through both of them. Finally, Sophia took the lead and intertwined her fingers with Elias's. He marveled at the warmth of her touch, so different from his own cool skin. They stopped near a beautiful fountain, the gentle sound of water adding to the peaceful night. Sophia turned to face Elias, her eyes searching his in the moonlight. "I have to say," she whispered, "I've never felt this close to someone so quickly before. It's a little scary but exciting." Elias reached up, gently tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. "I feel the same way," he murmured, his voice deep with emotion. "You've awakened something in me that I thought was long gone." Slowly they leaned toward each other. Elias could hear Sophia's heartbeat speeding up, smell the sweet scent of her blood just beneath her skin. His own body was filled with a mix of desire and hunger that threatened to overwhelm him. Their lips were just about to touch when a group of loud college students walked by, breaking the moment. Elias quickly pulled back, his eyes wide with a mix of desire and barely controlled bloodlust. I should take you home," he said, his voice strained. "It's getting late." Sophia looked confused and a little hurt, but she nodded and let Elias lead her back to the street, where they could catch a taxi. The ride to Sophia's apartment was quiet, the earlier fun mood replaced by an awkward tension. As they arrived, Sophia turned to Elias, her face a mix of hope and uncertainty. "Would you like to come up for coffee?" she asked softly. Elias closed his eyes for a moment, fighting against the strong urge to say yes. "I'm sorry, Sophia," he said quietly. "I had a wonderful time tonight, but I need to go." Sophia's disappointment was clear, but she managed a small smile. "I understand. Thank you for a lovely evening, Elias." Before he could stop himself, Elias leaned in and placed a gentle kiss on her cheek. The brief contact sent a jolt through both of them, and it took all of Elias's willpower to pull away. "Good night, Sophia," he whispered, watching as she left the taxi and walked into her building. As the taxi drove away, Elias leaned back, his unnecessary breath coming in short gasps. The taste of Sophia's skin lingered on his lips, mixed with the memory of her rare blood. He had come dangerously close to losing control. Back in his apartment, Elias paced restlessly, his mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The night had been perfect. Sophia was everything he had hoped for and more. Her kindness, her intelligence, her passion for life. They all called to him in a way he hadn't felt in centuries. But the hunger, the deep desire to taste her blood again, was always there, growing stronger. How could he pursue a relationship with her when every moment he was near her was a fight against his true nature? As the first rays of dawn began to creep across the sky, Elias made a decision. He would have to keep his distance from Sophia, for her own safety and to protect his secret. The thought hurt deeply, but he knew it was the right thing to do. Little did he know that across the city, Sophia lay awake in her bed, thinking about every moment of their evening together. Despite how it ended, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something special about Elias, something worth holding on to. As she drifted off to sleep, her dreams were filled with images of his mysterious eyes and the almost kiss by the fountain. Chapter 4. Secrets and Lies. Elias stood at the window of his dimly lit apartment, looking out at the city lights twinkling in the distance. His fingers traced the patterns on an old silver picture frame, a reminder of a life long ago. The weight of his secret felt heavy on his shoulders, even though Sophia made him feel lighter. With a deep sigh, he turned to face his old friend and mentor, Marcus, another vampire who had been with him for more than a century. Marcus sat in a leather chair, relaxed, but his eyes were sharp as he watched Elias. "You're playing a dangerous game, Elias," Marcus said, swirling a glass of deep red liquid that wasn't wine. "Falling for a human? Never ends well. You know that." Elias ran his hand through his hair, sounding frustrated. "It's different this time, Marcus. Sophia. She's unlike anyone I've ever met." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Different how? Because of her rare blood type? Or is it the way she looks at you with those innocent eyes?" "It's not just that," Elias said quickly, even though he couldn't deny how much her blood drew him in. "She's kind, smart, and she makes me feel alive." A bitter laugh escaped Marcus's lips. "Alive? We haven't been truly alive for hundreds of years, my friend. Don't fool yourself." Elias turned back to the window, seeing his reflection in the glass. "Maybe that's the problem. We've forgotten what it means to really live." While the two vampires argued about Elias's feelings for Sophia, across the city, Sophia was having a very different conversation with her best friend, Lily. Sophia curled up on Lily's couch, hugging a pillow as she spoke excitedly. "I can't explain it, Lil. There's just something about him that pulls me in. It's like he's from another world or something." Lily grinned, tossing a piece of popcorn into her mouth. "Well, he is good-looking in that brooding, mysterious way. But are you sure you're not just dreaming up some kind of vampire fantasy?" Sophia threw the pillow at her friend, laughing. "Oh, stop it. He's not a vampire. He's just different. Mature, you know? Like he's lived for 1,000 years. "Aha," Lily teased. "And it doesn't freak you out that he's a phlebotomist? I mean, with your fear of needles and all." Sophia's smile faded a little. "It's strange. When I'm with him, I almost forget about my fear. He has this calming effect that makes me feel safe." Lily's face softened. "That's sweet, sophomore. Just be careful, okay? There's still a lot you don't know about him." As the evening went on, both Elias and Sophia found themselves lost in their own thoughts, wondering about the unexpected feelings that were growing between them. The next evening, Elias headed to the hospital for his night shift, still thinking about his conversation with Marcus. When he arrived at the blood donation center, he immediately noticed the intense gaze of Dr. Harriet Chen, the head of the department. "Good evening, Elias," Dr. Chen said, her voice friendly but her eyes sharp. "I was hoping to catch you before your shift. Do you have a moment?" Elias nodded and followed her to her office. As he sat down across from her desk, he noticed the way she was watching him, as if she was trying to figure something out. "I've been reviewing some of our records," Dr. Chen began, shuffling through some papers, "and I've noticed some strange things with the blood inventory on your shifts." Elias felt a cold chill run through him, but he kept his face calm. "Strange things? I'm not sure what you mean." Dr. Chen leaned forward, her eyes serious. "Small amounts of blood seem to be missing. Not enough to cause a big problem, but it's happened more than once. Can you explain this?" For a moment, Elias felt trapped. He had always been so careful, only taking small amounts to keep his secret safe. But clearly, Dr. Chen had noticed something was wrong. I don't know," he said, his mind racing for a good excuse. "Maybe there's been a mistake in the system? I'll double-check everything from now on." Dr. Chen nodded slowly, but Elias could tell she wasn't fully convinced. "Make sure you do. We can't afford mistakes with the blood supply." As Elias left her office, he felt a mix of relief and fear. He would need to be even more careful from now on. The risk of someone finding out the truth was getting too close. Later that night, as Elias finished up with the donor, he heard a familiar voice that made his heart leap. Sophia had arrived right on time for their second date. "Hi," she said shyly as she walked up to him. "I hope it's okay that I came by. I thought maybe we could grab a coffee after your shift." Elias smiled, and the tension from earlier in the day melted away. "Of course. I'd love that. I'm almost done here." As they walked to a nearby cafe, Elias couldn't help but notice how her hand brushed against his, sending a warm spark through him. They found a small, quiet booth and sat down with their drinks. "So," Sophia said, wrapping her hands around her mug, "tell me more about yourself. Where did you grow up? What was your family like?" Elias felt a pang of anxiety. This was the part he always dreaded, making up a believable story about his past. "I grew up in a small town in Europe. My family, we were pretty traditional. I don't really keep in touch with them anymore." Sophia tilted her head, curiosity in her eyes. "That sounds lonely. Is that why you became a phlebotomist? To help people?" Elias nodded, glad for the change in subject. "In a way, yes. I've always been fascinated by the life-saving power of blood. It's something I'm passionate about." As they talked, Elias found himself telling Sophia more than he had planned. Her genuine interest and warmth made it easy to open up. He spoke about his love for art and literature, the places he had traveled, leaving out the centuries he had lived, and his desire to make a difference in the world. Sophia shared her dreams of becoming a writer, her struggles with anxiety, and her determination to overcome her fears. Elias admired her strength and her ability to find joy in simple things. The night was going well until Sophia's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and frowned. "Oh, it's my mom. She's probably wondering where I am. I should head home." Elias nodded, hiding his disappointment. As they stood to leave, Sophia suddenly stumbled, losing her balance. Without thinking, Elias caught her. His reflex is faster than any human's. Sophia looked up at him, surprised. "Wow, your reflexes are amazing." Elias quickly let go, stepping back. "Just good instincts, I guess. Comes with the job." As they said goodbye outside the cafe, Elias could feel a change in Sophia. She seemed a little more distant, as if she had noticed something odd. "Good night, Elias," she said, offering a small smile. "Thanks for a lovely evening." As Elias watched her walk away, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking a dangerous line. How long could he keep his secret? And more importantly, did he want to? Back in his apartment, Elias paced, feeling the weight of the day. Between Dr. Chen's suspicions and the strange moment with Sophia, everything was becoming more complicated. A soft knock at his door brought him out of his thoughts. When he opened it, his mentor Marcus stood there, his face serious. "We need to talk, Elias," Marcus said, his voice heavy with meaning. "This thing with the human girl has gone on long enough. You need to remember who and what you are." As Marcus walked into the apartment, Elias felt a sense of dread. He knew that the choices he made in the coming days would change everything for both him and Sophia. The careful balance he had kept between his vampire world and the human world was about to fall apart. Chapter 5: Matters of the Heart. Elias stood by the window of his apartment, staring at the city lights twinkling in the early evening. As usual, his thoughts drifted to Sophia. The past few weeks had been full of emotions, and every time he saw her, he felt both happy and troubled. He closed his eyes, remembering their last date, her eyes lighting up when she laughed, the warmth of her hand in his, and the sweet scent of her blood pulsing just beneath her skin. A soft knock at the door pulled him from his thoughts. He opened it to find Sophia standing there with a shy smile on her face. "I hope I'm not bothering you," she said, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. Elias's heart even though it hadn't beaten in centuries, seemed to flutter. Not at all. Please come in. As Sophia stepped inside, Elias watched her look around the room. Her eyes moved over the shelves full of old books and antiques he had collected over the years. Your place is amazing, she said, running her fingers over the spine of a leather-bound book. It's like stepping into another time. Elias smiled, happy but nervous. Thank you. I've always loved history and literature. Sophia turned to him, her face curious. You're something of a mystery, Elias. Sometimes I feel like I hardly know you at all. Her words hit Elias hard. How much had she noticed? How close was she to finding out his secret? He forced a light laugh. I'm an open book, Sophia. Ask me anything you want to know. She took a step closer, her eyes searching his face. Tell me about your family. Where did you grow up? Elias hesitated, carefully thinking about his answer. I lost my family a long time ago. I grew up in Europe, but I've traveled a lot since then. Sophia's expression softened with sympathy. I'm so sorry, Elias. That must be lonely being on your own for so long. If only she knew how long, Elias thought. He reached out, gently taking her hand in his. It was lonely for a long time, but not anymore. A charged moment passed between them, full of emotions that neither of them could say out loud. Sophia's pulse quickened, and Elias could hear it loud and clear. He leaned in, pulled by an irresistible force, and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was powerful, waking up feelings in Elias that he had thought were dead. Sophia melted into his arms, her warmth surrounding him. For a few blissful moments, Elias forgot about the distance between them. Vampire and human, eternal and mortal. But as the kiss grew deeper, so did Elias's hunger. The smell of Sophia's blood, always tempting, became too much. His fangs threatened to come out, the predator inside him stirring. With great effort, he pulled away, turning his face so she wouldn't see the hunger in his eyes. Elias! Sophia's voice was soft, with a mix of confusion and worry. Is everything okay? Elias took a deep breath to calm himself before turning back to her. Yes, I'm sorry. I just got carried away for a moment. Sophia's cheeks were flushed, and her lips were slightly swollen from their kiss. Don't apologize. That was wow. Elias forced a smile, even though he felt guilty inside. How could he continue this relationship when every moment with her was a battle against his true nature? Over the next few weeks, Elias and Sophia grew closer, despite the secrets between them. They spent evenings together, exploring the city, finding hidden cafes, and walking through parks under the moonlight. Elias loved seeing the world through Sophia's eyes. Her excitement was infectious. At the hospital, Sophia was making great progress with her fear of needles. Elias watched with pride as she donated blood during a drive, her hand only shaking a little when the needle went in. You did wonderfully, Elias told her afterward, trying to ignore the strong urge to taste her blood. Sophia beamed at him. I couldn't have done it without you. You make me feel brave. Her words warmed Elias but also hurt him. If only she knew the danger she was in every time they were together. As their relationship grew more serious, Elias noticed that people around them were starting to pay attention. Dr. Harriet Chen, the head of the blood donation center, began watching Elias more closely. He could feel her eyes following him whenever he moved through the hospital. One afternoon, Dr. Chen pulled him aside in the supply room. Elias, I've noticed you've been spending a lot of time with one of our regular donors. Sophia, right? Elias kept his expression calm. Yes, we've become friends. Is that a problem? Dr. Chen narrowed her eyes. I just want to remind you of the need for professional boundaries. We can't afford any improper behavior. The message was clear. Elias nodded, keeping his jaw tight. Of course, Dr. Chun. I assure you everything is above board. But even as he said the words, he knew they were a lie. Nothing about his relationship with Sophia was above board. He was deceiving her, putting her at risk, and worst of all, falling deeply in love with her. That evening, as they walked hand in hand through a park under the moonlight, Sophia turned to him with a serious look on her face. Elias, can I ask you something? Elias's heart tightened with worry. Of course. She bit her lip, hesitating. Sometimes when we're together, I feel like you're holding something back. Like there's a part of yourself you're not showing me. Am I just imagining it? Elias froze, torn between the urge to tell her the truth and the fear of losing her. Sophia, Before he could answer, a shadow appeared out of nowhere. Elias recognized him immediately. It was Viktor, his vampire mentor. Well, well, Viktor said with a sly smile. What do we have here? Elias, I thought I warned you about getting too close to humans. Sophia stepped back in surprise. Elias, who is this? Elias moved in front of Sophia, protecting her. Viktor, this isn't the time or place. Viktor laughed coldly. Oh, I think it's the perfect time. Your little human friend should know exactly what kind of monster she's spending time with. Sophia's voice shook. Elias, what is he talking about? Elias turned to her, his eyes pleading. Sophia, please, I can explain everything. But not here. Not now. Viktor clapped his hands in mock delight. Oh, this is too good. You haven't told her yet, have you? Should I do it for you? That's enough. Elias growled, his fangs showing without him meaning to. Sophia gasped, her eyes wide with fear. Elias! Your teeth! In that moment, Elias knew everything had changed. The secret he had carefully hidden was now out, and with it, the hope of having a normal relationship with Sophia was slipping away. Viktor's laughter echoed in the night as he disappeared into the shadows. Enjoy your little drama, Elias. But remember, you can't escape what you are. Elias turned back to Sophia, his heart breaking at the sight of her confusion and betrayal. Sophia, I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to find out this way. She took a step back, shaking her head. What are you? The word came out like a curse. A vampire, Elias whispered, his voice filled with regret. Sophia's face turned pale, and her whole body trembled. Without saying another word, she turned and ran, leaving Elias alone in the park, feeling the crushing weight of loneliness he had known for centuries. As he watched her disappear into the night, Elias felt the full impact of his choices. He had let himself hope for a future, to believe in something more than the endless nights he had lived. But in doing so, he had put Sophia in danger and destroyed her trust. The park felt darker and emptier than ever. Elias sat down on a bench, burying his face in his hands. How had he let things go this far? He should have known better than to think he could have a normal life, to think he could be anything other than what he was, a creature of the night forever separate from the human world. As the first light of dawn began to rise, Elias walked back to his apartment. The space that had once felt like a safe place now felt cold and lonely. He moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching the books and artifacts that had been his only company for so long. His phone buzzed with messages from the hospital, asking why he hadn't shown up for his shift. Elias ignored them all. How could he return to the hospital now? How could he face Sophia again, knowing the danger he brought into her life? As the sun rose higher in the sky, Elias closed the heavy curtains and sank into the darkness of his bedroom. For the first time in centuries, he felt completely lost. The delicate balance he had kept between his vampire side and his human facade had fallen apart. As he lay in the shadows, Elias knew he had a choice to make. He could run away, as he had done before when people found out his secret. He could start fresh in a new city with a new identity. It would be easy, he had done it many times before. But the thought of leaving Sophia behind was unbearable. Despite everything, he couldn't let her go. Not yet.